Craig DeLarge, and I'm here to give an overview of an adult religious education class that I and my good colleague Bob Clark did for Chestnut Hill Friends meeting on June 28, 2020. The topic of the class was COVID-19 and your activist intentions. This is a class that we put together in order to respond to a challenge that we've all been feeling during these times as we read about COVID-19 and various other movements happening in the society, and how we as Quakers can do something more than just read about it and fret over it, but in fact take action that is meaningful. So, in this discussion, we covered several themes. The first of which was thinking about this pandemic as a portal to a new era. And in supporting this part of the discussion, we took a look at the work of Arundhati Roy, the Indian author, who had written an article titled The Significance of COVID-19 as a Portal. And here is an excerpt that we lifted from this article, even though there is a longer piece that can be read. What she says is, what is this thing that has happened to us? It's a virus, yes. In and of itself, it holds no moral brief, but it is definitely more than a virus. It has made the mighty kneel and brought the world to a halt like nothing else could. Our minds are still racing back and forth, longing for a return to normalcy, trying to stitch our future to our past and refusing to acknowledge the rupture. But the rupture exists. And in the midst of this terrible despair, it offers a chance to rethink the doomsday machine we have built for ourselves. Nothing could be worse than a return to normalcy. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break free with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it dragging the carcasses of our prejudices and hatred, our avarice, our data banks and dead ideas, or dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. We found this particular excerpt particularly inspiring and a good frame for the next parts of our discussion. So in our discussion, we then went on to a second topic, which is, what will our key challenges be in this era? We then proceeded to have a brainstorm as a group of attendees where we noted down in the Zoom chat a number of challenges that we can see, which are vexing and worrying us, but which also are an opportunity in these times. In grouping the various responses together, we came to about 5 responses. And as you can see here, they can be grouped more or less under the headings of how can we love our neighbors better? How can we provide for better housing for our populations? How can we provide fair and affordable health care? How can we improve our educational system and also have an educational system that does a better job of educating ourselves and our children? And what can we do about climate change? This was a very fruitful list of challenges that we then took into a couple of different breakout discussions that we had the rest of the session. We then, as a frame for how we might further think about the action that we might take around the challenges discussed before, took time to reflect on the various Quaker testimonies. And here you see a representation of those testimonies that our good friend Bob Clark had provided us. This is an approach that's used in the Quaker school or the Friends School of one of his grandchildren, looking at the Quaker testimonies as spice. So here we had a discussion and review of the testimonies of simplicity, of peace, of integrity, of community, and of equality. And we felt that this was a great frame, again, for thinking about what testimony will we commit or recommit to as we think about the action that we will take with the various challenges that we had talked about before. We then next contemplated what role can we play in these times of change. And here we use Bill Moyer, the Quaker social activist, 4 roles of social activism: the reformer, the citizen, the change agent, and the rebel. And we took time to talk about each of the roles, how they behave differentially, and the contribution they make, but also to reflect on what can be ineffective about the use of each of these roles and the areas where we need to beware. I think that this was pretty illuminating for many of us who tend not to envision ourselves as reformers or rebels, but who saw, I think this was illuminating for many of us who tend not to see ourselves as change agents, organizers, or rebels, but realize that there is quite a lot that we can do with the roles and the privileges that we have in society, in bureaucracies, and in communities, as well as we realize that there's a lot that we can do as reformers and citizens, given the roles that we have within bureaucracies, organizations, and communities, as well as the talents and the expertise and the training that we have, where we see that reformers and citizens actually bring their privilege and power, as well as their skills, talents, and abilities to support the work of the organizer as change agent and of the rebel as agitator in the society. We also emphasize the idea that all of these actors or roles are needed, and that they work best when they work together, that there is indeed a need for interdependence and simultaneous action. And we provide a link here at the bottom of this slide to an article that gives more information about how these roles work together. We then took time to contemplate how we can all be better in solidarity with those who are oppressed and exploited. Because we understand that in all of those challenge areas that were talked about earlier, there is oppression and exploitation at work. And we all recognize that for each of those challenge areas, we can bring Quaker testimonies and a particular one or multiple of the 4 roles that we talked about to bear in such a way that in our own lives we can contemplate what challenge will we address, what particular testimonies will we affirm, and what role will we play. Within the discussion, it was not our intention to come to any particular conclusion during the discussion, but rather to set up an inquiry that each of us could take away, and in taking that away, make a decision about what we want to do further. And at some point in the future, we intend to reconvene in various ways to make ourselves accountable. We provided a few further readings that you see here, and we hope that you benefit from hearing this and welcome hearing from you if you have any further questions about the discussion that we had. Be well.